Hello and welcome to Bud's RPG Review, where I give my thoughts on role-playing games, card games and board games. Today's review is The Feast on Titanhead by Games Omnivorous. Okay, first a bit of history. Released in February 2020, The Feast on Titanhead is a scenario that was released under Games Omnivorous's Manifestus Omnivorous Principles. It is a 28-page digest format softback book that is available as a PDF or in print from the publisher. All books in the Manifestus Omnivorous series follow a set of 10 principles. The books are adventures, must be system agnostic, take place on Earth, can only have one location, can only have one monster, must include saprophagy or osteophagy, that being feeding on decaying matter and bones. They must include a voracious eater, have less than 6,666 words, can only be in 2 colours, and cannot have good taste. So with that in mind, let's look at the cover. The cover of The Feast on Titanhead features an illustration that is fairly hard to make out due to the colour scheme of grey and black, though it is quite easy on the eye. It's also worth mentioning that the book has a kind of elastic band retainer on it that serves to hold the detachable cover on. The main book is stapled together. Okay, to the inside. There will be spoilers from this point on, so stop watching now if you intend to play this. Also, some of the themes contained within are adult and gruesome in nature, so if that kind of thing bothers you then feel free to skip this video or even jump ahead to my final thoughts. Opening the book, we are greeted with a map that spreads across the inside covers and around the back, and then we move on to the scenario itself. The first chapter is entitled, What is This? It explains that the scenario itself takes place on the frozen edges of Europe, in the Dorag Passage, where a portion of the mountain has eroded away, revealing a colossal skull older than the mountain itself and of unknown origins, a remnant of the distant past. European academies have sent an expedition to it, but it hasn't returned, finding only horror and despair within. The expeditioners have been gripped by the lingering portion of brain housed inside the skull, the creature whose skull it belongs to remaining alive in some intangible way, and it's slowly manifesting itself using biological matter. Overcome by the immense psychic power of the creature's essence, madness swept over the expedition and the Titan awoke within them. The head of the expedition, Hastic Melmark, has turned mind and body into an engine of rebirth through which the Titan plans to be reborn. All of the expedition members roam their Titanhead, consuming organic matter which is being amassed to serve as its new body. This is where the players enter. We then move on to the next section involving the players. Here it gives us a number of adventure hooks ranging from Hastic Melmark being a friend of one of them to them literally stumbling across it in the wilderness. We then have Contagious Psychosis. It begins by stating that all players should be given a single d6, with it being set to 6. Upon entering the Titanhead, you are to set an alarm to go off every 20 minutes of real time. When it sounds, the players must make a mental saving throw in whatever form that takes in the system being used. Failure means they roll a d10 on this table due to the psychic effects of the brain. They then reduce the die by 1. When it reaches 1, they have a panic attack and assault the nearest human 3 times. This happens so quickly that the target cannot defend or dodge unless they have a talent particular to the game that allows them to. When it finally goes beyond 1, their mind is shattered and they become one of the insane that are controlled by the Titan. After this, it shifts focus to the encounters at Titanhead. There is the Titan itself that has been dormant for 1 billion years and was awoken by the desires of the expedition. Its brain matter, which resembles a blue-grey fungus that is covered in eyes and rides, has been preserved in the frozen landscape, and it has begun sending out dominant psychic pulses to lesser creatures that makes them mindless servants. The body of Hastic Melmark has been refashioned into a grotesque birth engine that devours organic substances in order to produce a new body. This matter is brought here by humans and animals. There is Hastic Melmark himself, the leader of the doomed expedition, who bears no resemblance to the man he once was. There is the insane, mindless beings that are stripped of their mind and will, whose job it is to eat brain matter and plunge themselves into what was Hastic in the birthing chamber. They react with indifference to anything else unless they are prevented from eating or Hastic is threatened or harmed. There are the Mules, animals that have been bent to the will of the Titan, horses, donkeys and hounds. Their lower jaws are distended in order to allow them to eat more matter, and they wander the mountainside devouring anything that they can in order to vomit it into the birthing chamber. There's also Caleb Holgren and his troop, a group of unwholesome treasure hunters and swindlers who believe the PCs are trying to trick them and try to take them out. The next section is called Sepulchral Mount. This gives details of the party coming into view of the mountain and gives some hazard rules, and then it moves on to the mountain's opening. They encounter what used to be a horse that has a large distended stomach with something clearly thrashing about inside. If they kill the creature and cut it open, they will find Elijah Bashar, the final survivor of the expedition. His head is half caved in, his skin is sickly green, and he is far beyond being able to recover. He will babble about something not getting him like the others, and then smash his own head in with the nearest large stone. We then add the insides of Titanhead. Here it gives a room-by-room account of the inside of the skull. The players will have to fight their way through brain pulses, the insane and mangled corpses of miners swimming in ponds of blood in order to get to the pineal stone. The stone sits upon an altar of bone and pulses with an inner light. If anybody gets within 20 feet of it, it will cause intense hallucinations from their own subconscious mind that will break any mortal. The DM should roll on this table here, and the player has 10 seconds to declare the antithesis of the word rolled. Success means they're okay. Failure means they take D8 damage and are shocked until the next round or until they move away from it. There's a magnetic room, a room full of cave etchings that show the tale of an Eskimo shaman that took shelter in the mountains and became a god. There's an altar that has a necklace of bones and a polar bear fur on it. If these are worn, the person who does so is immune to the psychosis here. Should they defeat the Titan wearing these, they become a shamanic figure to the northern natives. They will also come across a pregnant woman that has a horrific monster child living inside her that will burst out and attack the PCs. We eventually find a hole that leads to a final descent that the insane take to deliver their organic matter to the birthing chamber. The next section has 2 subsections, Titan Reborn and Titan Aborted. In the first bit, it gives a description of what was once Hastic Melmark, his humanity completely stripped from him. He is now a huge, unnaturally bloated creature that fills the whole chamber and is covered in bulbous eyes, his face bent in agony. He has no lower jaw, replaced by a vertical tear that extends to its stomach, forming a great maw with new teeth formed from ribs. It describes him as outrageously strong, and he has a ridiculous amount of hit points. The body extends intestinal tendrils that whip about the room. It will seek to consume the PCs. It attacks with a torrent of acid, an intestinal tentacle grab, and trying to swallow people whole with its ribcage maw. A very, very tough opponent. Should the PCs somehow defeat Hastic, we move on to the Titan Aborted section. If he is slain, the half-formed Titan will be ejected from the vile makeshift womb with unimaginable reflexes and can only be hit with a critical hit, but conversely only has 1 hit point. It attacks using a psychic shriek that can knock PCs unconscious, and then it tries to merge itself with the body of them. Finally, it shifts to the conclusion. If the Titan wins, settlements within 2,000 square miles will be consumed by it as it settles into its new home, and the lands to the north will be talked about as a dangerous place as some kind of giant lives there. If it is defeated, there is a thunderous blast of psychic energy that shakes the earth and fills the sky with radiance. The insane in here are stripped of their mental bonds and regress mentally to the state of an infant, leaving the sound of weeping newborns in the Titanhead. Finally, it also gives a little bit of information on Hastic Melmark's journal. The Feast on Titanhead is an interesting and welcome take on the system-agnostic approach to scenario design. It manages to cram bucket-loads of flavour and feel into 28 pages, made even more surprising by the fact that only 18 of them have actual writing on them. The rest is art. The drawings throughout are gory and page-filling, and it does have an early old-school feel to it, though a bit hit and miss with regard to actual quality, though obviously this is in the eye of the beholder. The whole concept of Manifestus Omnivorous should make for some compelling future scenarios that I would be interested in reading, though I can't help feeling that it may quickly run out of steam given the fairly tight restrictions. Value-wise, the scenario is a tad on the expensive side in print at €15 or around £13 or $17, and I think it's one that would be better value as a PDF, though the paper and printing of the book is actually really nice with a heavy cardstock being used. Conceptually, The Feast on Titanhead clearly owes a lot to body horror movies like John Carpenter's The Thing, and with this in mind I feel that the scenario potentially lends itself to a number of settings. Obviously games like Merc Borg and Lamentations of the Flame Princess immediately spring to mind, as it is definitely in that particular ballpark of awfulness, but I also think that this could easily be tweaked for Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay as a horrific Shrine to Nurgle, or even Call of Cthulhu with some good planning, though it could possibly be run in under 2 sessions, and the GM has to bear in mind that the defeat of the Titan has world-changing effects, so may not want to inflict such permanence on their campaign. I also feel that there are some tidbits of information missing. For example, there are a number of NPCs in the game that are given description and the rest is kind of hand-waved away, though I appreciate that in order to remain system agnostic, this may have had to have been the case. All in all, the Feast on Titanhead is a pretty good scenario that is nicely designed and fairly hardcore in nature, though the potential audience may be limited by just how much body corruption a person can stomach. I give it a 7.5 out of 10. If you enjoyed this review, please make sure to hit the thumbs up, subscribe to my channel and check out my other videos. Also, if you're interested in buying this product, I've put some links below. Lastly, if you like what I produce here, then maybe think about supporting me on Patreon. Bud out.